Hey guys, welcome back to Adaptive Adventures. I'm Casey. On this channel we talk about everything from wheelchair equipment to accessible travel tips and lifestyle tips. On this week's video, I'm going to be telling you all about my Freewheel attachment. So this attachment I use on many different travels and trips, and it's been a great addition to my repertoire of equipment that has really enhanced and changed my ability to be mobile and independent. The first piece of essential equipment I always bring when we're planning on going to the beach is my Freewheel. I bought this, I want to say probably like 5 years ago now, and really even for non-beach getaway trips, it's been a real game changer. When we go to big cities and sometimes older cities that might have cobblestone or uneven surfaces in general, I take this camping as well, like if we're going to be walking on trails and things like that. And it does a whole lot to make my life way more, and my trips way more enjoyable. So what this does is it clamps to the front of your chair, and then this bigger wheel allows your front casters to rise up off the ground, and you can adjust it on how much you want it to rise up. I usually try to max that as much as possible, and the most I can get on my chair with my setup, the most I can get my wheels off the ground is probably maybe like 2.5 inches, which is plenty. But this riding over cobblestone in an old European city, or using it on the beach so that your front casters aren't digging into the sand, is a huge game changer. It makes pushing on the sand way easier, and it makes you strolling through other terrain a lot smoother, and you don't have to focus on making sure you're not going to hit the next rut on a tree stump or a tree root or fall into the next crack on a sidewalk, and rather you can have your head up and enjoying hopefully the beautiful scenery that's around you. So next, I just kind of want to give you a quick overview of how I set this up. If you buy the Freewheel, you can get it on a lot of different durable medical equipment providers. So like, I think I got mine back, like I said, 5 or 6 years ago on livingspinal.com, but I think Sport Aid sells them. You can get them right from the Freewheel website itself, and we can probably put some links somewhere for you guys to find them. But it does come with a manual, and admittedly the manual was a little confusing at first when I remember reading it. But like when you're ordering, just make sure you order the right stuff you need for your chair. It comes standard with everything you need if your foot plate is, I think if I'm remembering correctly, if your foot plate is like a solid non-adjustable foot plate. But if you have one that tilts, I think Tylite has a couple that this isn't welded, this front little plate. There's a tilt adjustable one. If you have that, or if you have like a folding chair, there's just a little bit different attachment that attaches with if you have a folding chair or flip up footrest. But for me, all I do is you open up the clamp like this. And actually you can see what I did to make this a little bit easier. And I just did this recently because I was getting frustrated with, once I was on a trip, trying to guess to make sure that it gets on straight so that you're tracking straight. So what I did is I took the time to measure the width of my foot plate and the width of the Freewheel clamp here, and then I did the math and everything, and kind of just balanced it out to make sure that I knew exactly where the center was, and then I marked that with just some permanent marker, and then I put some electrical tape right down the center, so I know that when I come to do this, if I line all that up correctly, and also when you put it on, you're supposed to have it like in this mode, and then that makes it easier to put on. So as long as I know that this is like not tilted like this, and it won't really go on tilted, because as you squeeze it down it straightens itself out, but I try to get it as straight up and down as possible and get it on those center markings that I made, and then we just clamp it down and we're on there straight. Yeah, we're pretty straight. I'm just slightly off, but like this, we know we're straight and we're secure. Like I pick it up, it's not going to fall off. And then you swing the Freewheel in like this, and then as you can see, I don't have it fully adjusted right now, but it's picking my front casters off the ground, probably only about a half an inch right now. I could get more out of it, and I might adjust that a little bit. And actually, I could probably show you how you do that. Otherwise, the directions on how to do that are that part of the directions in the manual is pretty good. So in order to do that though, I need to grab just a couple tools. Okay, so in order to adjust height on here, all you need is your Allen wrench set. And it's pretty simple. It's just three screws total. So you see these ones on the side. First, we're gonna loosen those. And I just gotta get the right size on my Allen wrench set. So we're gonna loosen this one. And you don't want it super, super loose, but enough so that it can, you'll see how it's gonna travel here in a second. So we'll back it out, like just enough so you can kind of see that screw away from the metal. And there's an exact replica one on the other side, replica, whatever, twin. We're just gonna loosen that one too. And if we loosen it enough, you'll see that we can see some travel here. And the only thing that's stopping it from traveling is this nut now. And that's the one we're actually going to adjust to. And this is actually what I'm realizing too is now pretty close to maxed out, meaning all the way up, getting my front casters off the ground as much as possible. So in order to adjust up and down like this, we then just need to loosen or tighten that bolt. And is it this? Okay. So as you can see, I actually forget which way is which. Okay, so left is going to make us go lower. See, you can, and if Andrea zooms in on my casters, you can see as we go left, see how my casters are actually touching the ground now? So that's making us go lower. But if we want our casters higher off the ground, we twist the center bolt to the right. So like tightening it, we're tightening it. And see now, they're starting to come up off the ground now. And I'm actually gonna max that out as much as we can. I think I told you earlier that I can get this, I thought I could get this a lot further off the ground, but this is actually pretty good as long as they're not catching. Because you got to remember too, if you go over a bump with this, yes, this doesn't seem like a lot, but if you go over a bump with this is going to bring your whole front of your chair up that much. So it's not like you're going to be catching a lot on it. So that is basically maxed out. And what you want to remember first is you keep these two side bolts loose and you adjust with this one, and then once you're in the place you want to be, then you tighten these again, and that locks it into that setting, that height adjustment. So now that we have that all the way up, we don't want all the stress to be just on that bolt. So we got to make sure we retighten the side ones. So now we get that one in, back to tight, and we don't want to over tighten them, just make sure they're snug. Yep, and that's how we do that. So the other adjustment you can do, there's a couple other things you can do for adjustment on the Freewheel. If you're in the chair and it doesn't seem to be tracking straight or tracking well, like you're pulling to one side or the other, you can adjust the steering. So right now, I just did the steering last night and it's looking pretty good. I might have to adjust. I did the steering not in the chair, which I wouldn't recommend. Like, don't be lazy if you're gonna adjust the steering, get in the chair and figure it out, feel how it's feeling. I did it without feeling how the steering was, but I think I'm pretty straight. But anyways, if you're going to adjust the steering, there's two things you need to do. First, if you look on the very front of the Freewheel, if Andrea wants to come around the side here, you can see a very small nut or a little set screw right here. So the very first thing you need to do is loosen that. And we'll find out which one of my Allen wrenches is the size. Oh, did I get it on the first guess? I did. Okay. So we just want to loosen that and you get it out, enough that you don't want to lose it all the way because it's kind of a pain to put back in. But there we go. Just enough like that. And then the other one we're loosening is the big one here on the bottom. And then so we loosen that one up as well. Oh, and this one can be a bit tough. So you gotta put some muscle behind it. And that one we just loosen. It doesn't have to come all the way out, but we're just loosening that. And then what you do is you would get in the chair and you would feel how the steering is going. So if you're pulling one way or the other, you'd adjust the wheel accordingly. And then once you have that setting kind of right, and this would be easier to do with a second person because they can kind of hold it in place. Once you have where you want the wheel to like default to, then you take your little screw or your little Allen wrench again, and you would set the, see, and I might be able to eyeball this. We're pretty square. So what I'm gonna do is try to hold that like that. And then you hold that positioning as you tighten the little screw in, and the little screw is gonna hold basically the default, like the center, because I'll show you here in a second. So anyways, you get that one done, and then you redo, once you do the little one, you do the big one again. And be careful, the owner's manual on the Freewheel will say that you need to use a torque wrench on this one so you don't over tighten it. It only needs about 20 pounds of torque so that you don't damage. So if you have a torque wrench, that's great. I'm just gonna try to do it by feel and not get it too tight. Yeah, right there. So enough so that it's not gonna come loose, but don't like, yeah, so. And then you should be pretty set. And then this little knob here, again, it'll explain it in if you ever get one, it'll explain in the owner's manual. This is how tight of a steering you want to be. So like if you want to be able to kind of use your hips to kind of flop this back and forth, because, oh, that's what I was going to show you. So this is spring loaded. So it will come back to center, or like if you get it all the way around, it locks here at a certain point. And then can come back all the way around and see it locks in. So that's what you're locking in with this front little one, is where that stops. And you want to try to get that as centered as possible so that its default is tracking you straight. Now, how hard it is to make this spin is based on how tight you have this knob. So the more tight you make this knob, the harder that is. Like the more resistance you need to get it to go this way or go this way. And the looser you make this, the easier it will be to go back and forth. See, because now I can start to even just fling it and it moves. So for me, I usually keep this not super loose because I don't want to lose the bolt and I want it to kind of help me keep going straight. But also I've got a decent amount of hip mobility, and with my hands, I don't want to, sometimes it can be a little hard to keep this like straight all the time. So if you keep this a little bit looser, I've noticed that then you have more control over kind of keeping your chair going straight, as opposed to this feeling like it's pulling you one direction or the other, especially if you didn't maybe get the alignment quite perfect or whatever. If you keep this a little looser, it's not going to drag you one way or the other. So that's how I get my my Freewheel on when I'm using it. And then it comes with a very nifty little attachment so that when I'm not using it on the front of my chair, so not so much for my beach trips, but if we're taking it into the city and sometimes we need to use it, but then I want to go into a shop and I don't want it on the front, it comes with this little bracket you can put on the back cross base on your chair, and then this just latches on like this, and that will stay right there for you. It's pretty close to the ground, but you can, if you want to, you can adjust on your kind of needs, what angle you want that at. The other thing too is, so you'll notice here that there's this little sham piece. It comes with a couple of different lengths of ones of those, and then depending on what the shape of your foot plate is, it has like little rubber shims that can go in this part, and then so it fits your foot plate to what you need. And then also this piece here where that attaches to when you're not using it, there's different sizes of those too, so that you can make sure it's going to work for you. So they claim that, and I'm pretty sure it'll fit almost like any tie light, any quickie. They don't even advertise, and I used it on a Performax before in my life. So it's quite versatile and adjustable. admittedly, initial setup can be a little tricky at first, but if you're patient with it and get it set up for you, once you're in your chair and once you're ready to go on your trip, like, it shouldn't be a whole lot of adjustment. It's just that initial one. So I hope you liked this video and found it informative on how to set up your Freewheel if you ever get one, or if you're considering one. Hopefully maybe this kind of convinced you that it is a really great tool. I love it, and it's probably one of the best wheelchair equipment or accessible equipment purchases I've ever made. So if you like I said, if you like this video, or if you found what I was mentioning, the other things we talked about early in the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell. We try to post about once a week, and we'll see you on the next Adapted Adventures.